McConnell, no legislative agenda for 2022 midterms. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won more votes than any other presidential ticket in history, with a campaign that promised to first fire Donald Trump and then launch a massive public health campaign, including vaccination, to fight COVID-19 and pull the American economy out of the pandemic recession. So, how is the Biden-Harris team doing?
We passed two historic pieces of legislation: the American Rescue Plan delivered immediate relief to millions of people and rescued the economy from the brink. We're growing faster than any other nation in the world in terms of our growth rate. Since its passage, we have a record number of jobs. We've created over 6 million jobs since January 20th. No new presidency ever created that many jobs as quickly. And we've seen the extraordinary drop in unemployment. We passed the most important piece of infrastructure legislation that's ever been passed, or since at least the Eisenhower administration, that built the interstate highway system. And this law is going to create millions of jobs, good paying jobs you can raise a family on.
As of now, we have, as in past tense, lifted 40% of America's children out of poverty. Let's reflect on that. Let's reflect on what that means. For generations, talk about transformative. Talk about return on the investment. You all know elections have consequence. Elections matter. And it's not about a victory celebration, not about a pat on the back. It's about then what can we achieve with the time that we have that directly impacts so many people.
And in the most ignored, huge accomplishment of the Joe Biden-Chuck Schumer partnership, President Biden has nominated and Chuck Schumer has confirmed more lifetime appointed federal judges than any first-year president since Ronald Reagan. Joining us now is Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman. He is a columnist for the New York Times and a distinguished professor at the City University of New York Graduate Center. Professor Krugman, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Let's hear your review of the Biden-Harris first year of the administration.
Oh, I mean, by most normal standards, this has been, first of all, the social stuff. The American Rescue Plan did make an enormous difference to millions of lives. The infrastructure, infrastructure became a running joke for 4 years. Now it's for real. There's a lot of other stuff I would like to see happen, but it's a lot. And we have had an extraordinary jobs recovery, and in spite of, there are some glitches. I mean, I know we're going to talk about inflation, but we are far closer to regaining the jobs lost due to the pandemic than I think almost anybody expected. So by most normal standards, this has been a really good year. Trouble is actually convincing enough people that it has actually happened.
Inflation is a worldwide phenomenon now. How much of the inflation that this country is enduring now is attributable to government policy?
I would say not very much. There's some. Those programs, the American Rescue Plan, sustained purchasing power, and Americans have been buying a lot of stuff, and a lot of what they've been buying is physical stuff. You couldn't go to the gym, so you bought exercise equipment. And that has clogged supply chains, and that's part of the reason for the inflation. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of it is really independent of anything that any president could have done. A lot of it has been oil prices, although those have come down a lot in the last few weeks, and that will help. But no, the idea that this is a Biden inflation just doesn't stand up if you try to talk about it. And if you ask, Republicans are condemning it, but if you ask, so what would you do? Well, how would you bring inflation down? And how would things be better if Donald Trump were still in office? They have absolutely no answer.
I know economics is not supposed to be a predictive discipline, but you are called upon to do so all the time. As you look forward into 2022, what would you expect, given what we know now, to see happening in the economy?
I think that the economy will continue to grow, to add jobs, not probably as fast as it has because we've gained so many already. It's not, we're particularly among prime-aged adults, we're pretty close to where we were before all of this nightmare happened. So we'll continue to add jobs. Inflation will come down. It will probably still be high. There's enough stuff in the pipeline. Things like rents on new apartments are way up, but the overall rent index doesn't reflect that because a lot of people are still on their old leases. That sort of thing will mean that inflation continues for a while. But the Fed has released its own projections. It expects inflation to come down but still be somewhat high over the course of next year. It expects unemployment to continue to fall. I can't make much of an argument with that. I think where we are is a situation where we will still have things to complain about, but it will actually look a lot better a year from now than it does now.
Will it be possible for inflation to decline more rapidly in the United States than in other countries that are also enduring inflation right now?
Quite possibly, because some of the things that have driven it up are kind of uniquely American, not because things are bad, but because they're good. Because we supported income so well, we've been buying more stuff. Durable goods, sorry, jargon, but the stuff that comes in on those container ships that are parked outside the ports of Los Angeles, we've been buying more of that than anybody else because we've done such a good job of keeping people's incomes up. And as those bottlenecks ease, inflation will probably come down a lot more in the United States than it will in other places.
If you could spend a few minutes sitting in the Oval Office on January 1st with the president, what would you tell him?
Well, I think mostly it's about messaging. I mean, the policies, I hate to sound, everybody knows my politics, but, this is a very intelligent administration. It has not done anything stupid. There are very few things that it has done that are obvious, clear mistakes, and a lot of things that it's done are really good. But the messaging often seems to be kind of weak. They should be hammering those job gains. I mean, not just an occasional press conference from the president, but they should be out there all the time. They should be talking about what would things be like if Republicans got their way. They should be saying, people want to take away those child tax credits that are making it possible for you to afford food for your family. So I think, usually I hate this kind of thing, but right now I think the messaging is terribly important.
The Joe Manchin seems to think that there is a serious inflation risk in the what's left of the Biden legislative agenda that hasn't yet been enacted or carried out. What would you say to Joe Manchin about that?
I'd like you to talk to a high school math teacher. Really, seriously. The numbers are just not there. I mean, the Build Back Better is not that, it looks like a lot of money. $1 trillion here, you always sound like Dr. Evil, $1 trillion. But the U.S. economy is enormous. And the amounts of money that we're talking about, largely paid for with new taxes, are just not enough to be a source of inflation. I mean, with one thing, we can talk about the American Rescue Plan, which was $1.9 trillion in 1 year. Now we're talking about $1.7 trillion, largely paid for over 10 years. That's just not a big inflationary thing.
Professor Paul Krugman, always an honor to speak with you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Take care.
Thank you. And coming up, the political media